South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Well, something to think about, for sure.
WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Sixers, Warriors tonight. We will get you all the details. Who's playing, who's not. Right now, it looks like maybe no Tobias Harris tonight for the Sixers. Kevin McCormick will give us all the details coming up at 6:40 p.m. Of course, we will get into the Eagles, the NFL draft, the latest on that. And, of course, you guys can chime in. 609-403-0973 is the text board. And you can comment on the live stream as you watch on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. A lot to get to here on the hour edition of the show. Yes, it looks like Tobias Harris looks like he may not play tonight for the 76ers. I still haven't seen a specific update. Here we go. Steve Kerr just told the media Steph Curry should be good to go tonight versus the Sixers. So it looks like we will get our Steph versus Embiid showdown at the center tonight. And of course, as I said, Kevin McCormick will join us as well. Doc Rivers also said that George Hill is in line to make his Sixers debut. So it should be a fun night to watch Sixers basketball. And we get the best coverage on planet Earth over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Our team of guys, Paul Hudrick, Kevin McCormick, and Jay Blevins. But before we get to any more Sixers and NBA stuff, I got to start with the NFL because I don't think people realize how this draft is going to play out. And I understand that a lot of this is subjective based on which mock draft, which website, who you want to listen to or not listen to. But I like to go with the information that's tangible. I can't just go with flimsy conjecture. Here's what I know. And when I found this information out today, my mind started spinning. All right. So you might have heard earlier today that Trey Lance, the North Dakota State quarterback, had his second pro day today. And the reason why that's significant is because Kyle Shanahan was in attendance for this. So Kyle Shanahan has now been in attendance for Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields pro days. Well, the significance of it was, did you know the original quarterback coach for Trey Lance was Quincy Avery? Now, Quincy Avery is the guy who's trained people like Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson, among others. According to reports, Dan Graziano from ESPN is reporting that the reason why Trey Lance changed his quarterback coach to John Beck was because the 49ers recommended it. That somehow the 49ers got in touch with Trey Lance's people and said, you should switch to John Beck. What is the significance of that? Well, John Beck used to play for Kyle Shanahan when Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator in Washington. And they purposely were running San Francisco 49er concepts at Trey Lance's pro day today and catching balls from Trey Lance at the pro day workout today was former Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver and former Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco 49er wide receiver, Jordan Matthews. You know, for weeks we were being told, oh, they traded up for Mac Jones. And then we saw Kyle Shanahan yucking it up with Justin Fields. Now we're finding out that there's a lot of connective tissue between Kyle Shanahan and this Trey Lance situation. I'm telling you guys right now, I am starting to be convinced that Trey Lance may go third overall in the NFL draft. And if that's the case, that changes a lot of things tonight. That changes a lot of things for the Eagles. That changes a lot of things for the Falcons. It changes a lot of things for the Lions. And here's why. If you're the Eagles and you're still sitting there at 12th overall and you watch Trey Lance go off the board at 3rd overall, there is going to be an insane amount of calls to Atlanta at 6 and every team after that to move up to get Justin Fields. And if that's the case, if there is now a arms race to go get Justin Fields, and then Mac Jones starts dropping, and somebody starts calling teams about trading up for Mac Jones, this is the perfect scenario if you're a team like the Eagles, because now you can take advantage of desperate teams doing desperate things. Because what happens if Justin Fields goes at 4 or at 5 or at 6 or at 7? You know what that means? Mac Jones isn't far behind, which means more players drop down the list, which means your need to trade up becomes less. I'm not dismissing the Eagles won't trade up. What I am telling you is the Trey Lance at 3 is going to change a lot. Because if Justin Fields goes at 3, it's going to feel a little bit ho-hum, and Lance and Mac will probably just fall to wherever they're going to fall. But if Trey Lance goes that high, there is going to be teams that are going to go start reaching for Justin Fields. I don't care what anybody says out there. I have heard enough talent evaluators, enough people who watch tape, enough people who know a lot more football than you and I do, folks, telling me how good this young man could be as an NFL quarterback. And if he can be that good as they say he can be, and as I think he can be, then teams are going to chase him. I don't know if it's going to be the Falcons or the Lions that draft him. They may be the two teams that say, come give us a bid, tell us who your best offer is, and we'll trade down. Because we do know that teams like the New England Patriots, teams like the Chicago Bears, teams like the Washington football team, they all need quarterbacks, and their future at quarterback is completely uncertain. It's a complete unknown. Look at the Patriots. They are not happy with Jared Stidham. The Jared Stidham project is not working out. And I don't know if Bill Belichick is really that interested in reuniting with Jimmy Garoppolo with all the injuries that Garoppolo has suffered now since he got to San Francisco. And Cam Newton is only a placeholder. He's not a long-term solution. Even if Cam Newton gets anywhere in the vicinity of his MVP form from several years ago, that's still not a solution long-term for the Patriots. That's a short-term fix as they look for a long-term solution. Washington football team, Ryan Fitzpatrick is in his late 30s, and his backups basically consist of Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen's coming off of injury. By the way, shout out to Alex Smith retiring from the NFL. That's going to be a Disney movie one day right there. Disney better go and get those rights for someone else like Netflix buys them up, because the Alex Smith story is going to be a movie, folks. I'm telling you right now. There's so many layers to that young man's story, from high school to college to the NFL to the injury to the comeback. That's it. That's a Disney movie, somebody's movie coming to a streaming platform near you. But anyway, back to the football on the field. I think Washington needs a quarterback long term, and I don't think that they, in their right mind, think that Taylor Heineke is that guy. And then you have Chicago. They're desperate to save their jobs. Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, they may just do risky stuff just to do risky stuff. So teams will trade up. And by the way, there's no guarantee that Denver's out of the quarterback conversation. They're sitting at 9. What if Denver calls somebody and says, hey, Atlanta, Detroit, Cincinnati, move with us, make a trade. Cincinnati doesn't have to stay at 5. I know a lot of people are assuming they stay there, but we've seen a lot of teams make moves that we don't always think about. What if Cincinnati says, you're giving us an offer that we have to say yes to? The old Godfather term, I'm going to give you an offer you can't refuse. Well, what if the Denver Broncos give them that offer? I don't think Cincinnati is going to be against moving down to 9, especially considering the fact that they can still get an offensive lineman at 9. Because if Penei Sewell, for whatever reason, is gone by 9, they can still draft a Rashawn Slater or a Darius Shaw from Virginia Tech or any of those guys at 9th overall. It's not out of the question. You can get a wide receiver there as well. You can go get more help. It might not be Jamar Chase, but it could be Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith. The Bengals don't have to stay at 5. I think a team that stays put the most is Miami. I think Miami specifically targeted the 6th overall pick with the Eagles because they were looking at specific players, whether it is Chase, Kyle Pitts, whoever it may be. I think that they're looking at specific players right there. And I think Miami's the one team that stays. So whatever San Francisco does, it's going to create a domino effect. And I'm starting to believe in this connective tissue right now. I think there's something in this Trey Lance, the 49ers stuff, this idea that the Patrick Mahomes experiment, let the starting quarterback, then Alex Smith, now Jimmy Garoppolo, be the starter. Let them have another year. Let the young man sit behind. Let him learn. Let him develop. Trey Lance is the most raw of all of these 5 top quarterback prospects. He is the one guy that has the least amount of starting experience. He has the least amount of reps as a quarterback. He has the most upside, arguably. You could argue he has even more upside potentially than Trevor Lawrence. I know that says a lot, but I think the problem for guys like Lawrence is that Lawrence is arguably coming in with a higher floor than the other 4 quarterbacks. So he can start day one, and his ceiling is still high. But Trey Lance has these intangibles that everyone who knows him loves. I'm listening to Trent Dilfer the other day, who runs the Elite 11 quarterback camps and those competitions that among all the high school quarterbacks. He gets to know all these quarterbacks year in, year out. And Dilfer, starting quarterback in the NFL, won a Super Bowl. He's been studying the quarterback position even after he's coaching high school kids now. And he listened to my interview and he says, this kid Trey Lance is special. And he's not the only one I've heard say that. So if Kyle Shanahan is getting information to Lance, his people, that, hey, hire John Beck to be your quarterback coach. I'll come to your workout. Run these plays, John Beck, so I can see him play like this. That's going to create a domino effect. Because whoever the 49ers pick is going to force the entire league to react. I am not going to be surprised if more players fall to the Eagles than we expect. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, text board is open at 609-403-0973. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show and comment as you watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Couple of news notes we will get to before we get back to the Eagles on the other side of the break. John Heyman is reporting that the MLB Network Insider, no Phillies players are known to be COVID positive at this point. The only Phillies coaches are positive so far. There are 3 Phillies players who are in protocols due to close contact. So that's why the Phillies made a bunch of roster moves today before the game tonight. For those who don't know all the details, it looks like there are 3 coaches for the Phillies who are just not going to be available. That includes first base coach Paco Figueroa, coaching assistant Bobby Meacham, infield coach Juan Castro will serve as first base coach. Lehigh Valley manager Gary Jones serve as third base coach today. The 3 players who are in close contact are considered to be Jose Alvarado, Ronald Torres, and Matt Moore. So they are all out of action for the meantime. The Phillies have called up to fill their slots, includes left-handed pitcher Damon Jones, infielder Nick Matone. Nick Matone is playing tonight, by the way. How about that? And Christopher Sanchez is the other pitcher they called up from Lehigh Valley. So, yes, Nick Matone is starting in your Phillies lineup tonight. So, there's a little news on the Phillies front. Also, an update on the Sixers front. Again, Tobias Harris, it's looking like he may not play tonight. Steph Curry, according to Steve Kerr, is good to go. It also looks like George Hill will make his debut for the Philadelphia 76ers tonight. You hear all the action right here at 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin McCormick will join us coming up at 6:40 with all the latest on the 76ers and their game of Embiid versus Steph Curry here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Of course, game night being brought to my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. One of the things I love about betting on basketball, like the Sixers-Warriors game tonight on FanDuel Sportsbook, is I'm always finding new player props and game props that I like. And what's cool about FanDuel Sportsbook is you can combine these props from the same game to score an even bigger payout. It's got a same game parlay bet, and you can only find them on FanDuel Sportsbook. If you haven't tried FanDuel Sportsbook yet, new users get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Just place a bet, and FanDuel will refund you up to $1,000 back in site credit if you don't win your first bet. Also, right now, new and existing users can get up to $25 in site credit back each day if your parlay falls one leg short. Yes, same game parlay insurance. I've told you about that hundreds of times here. We do them all the time here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Well, right now, new and existing users can take those same game parlays every day with same game parlay insurance. And if your parlay falls one leg short, you get site credit back every single day up to $25. So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app right now if you haven't already. Sign up with my promo code Hennig to get your first bet risk-free up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig to get your first bet risk-free with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older to play in President NJRPA. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $25 for same game parlay insurance. Terms apply. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for all details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll check out the text board on the other side, 609-403-0973. And we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can customize your alerts right now on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. If you only want Phillies and Sixers alerts, or Flyers or Eagles, high school sports, whatever you want, just download the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, customize for all the alerts on all the news you want to know about your Philadelphia sports teams. And of course, you can listen to 97.3 ESPN on the app anywhere you go in the world.
Swing in to Matt Blatt Kia and put zero down. A hit with 0% APR financing. That's deep for 75 months. A home run. Don't get fooled by a bad pitch. Matt Blatt Kia in Toms River and Egg Harbor Township needs your trade, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. So get out of that old car you hate and get the credit you deserve with zero down payment and 0% APR financing available for up to 75 months on every new 2021 Kia Sportage in stock, or get a $2,500 consumer rebate only at Matt Blatt Kia. We want to get you approved today, and you can't make a mistake with our 4-day love it or leave it return policy. Come in today or visit us online because
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
offers with approved Tier 1 or 2 credit through Kia Motors Finance. Not all will qualify. 0% based on $1,333 per $1,000 borrowed. Negative equity refinance into new loan. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details. Expires 5/5/2021. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
If you're an athlete or live an active lifestyle, aches and pains can be part of the game. That's where Trifecta Therapeutic comes into play. Trifecta Therapeutics is a premier sports rehabilitation physical therapy center located centrally for anyone in South Jersey, right in Glassboro. Whether you're a weekend warrior or a finely tuned athlete, they treat the pros and the Joes. No script needed. To schedule your free discovery session, use code ESPN Radio, trifectatherapeutics.com, or call today.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. About 16 minutes from now, but joined by Kevin McCormick, our Sixers writer for 97.3 ESPN.com. Sixers back in action tonight. The latest looks like Steph Curry, according to Steve Kerr, will play tonight. Doc Rivers says Tobias Harris. I'm just melding words over together here. It's a Monday. No, Doc Rivers said Tobias Harris has a chance he may not play tonight, but there's nothing serious with his knee. And the Sixers are expected to see the debut of George Hill tonight. So finally, the trade deadline acquisition finally gets back on the court. Of course, Sixers versus Warriors tonight on 97.3 ESPN. I mentioned before I went to the break about FanDuel Sportsbook, your same game parlays. We did go 2-1 over the weekend on the picks. We hit on the Lakers picks. Lakers didn't just cover the spread. They won by double digits. Oh, my goodness. On Saturday. And then Dennis Schroeder did hit the over. We did get the Arlovsky Sherman fight wrong. There was no knockout, and frankly, it was incredibly boring. I mean, that fight was just bad. It was a bad fight. I'm sorry. I mean, watching that fight, I feel bad. I recommended that fight to anybody. I really am, because that fight was just poor. So we went 2-1. So we're still on the winning side of things over the weekend. Same game parlays again on FanDuel Sportsbook. You know, Joel Embiid and Steph Curry are both scoring a ton of points recently in their last 7 games. Both men are scoring over 30 points per game. If you make that bet with same game parlay insurance on FanDuel Sportsbook, Steph Curry to score over 30 points, Joel Embiid to score over 30 points combined is plus 110 on the line. So $10 will net you 11. So you walk away with 21. That's again with FanDuel Sportsbook same game parlay insurance. Let's get to your guys' thoughts and comments. Obviously, we talked a lot of football to open the show. 609-403-0973 is the text board. I'm telling you right now, I'm getting the feeling more and more that players are going to fall in this draft. You're not going to see guys picked where they should. There's going to be every year someone's going to reach. Someone's going to pick too high. Someone's going to try to, say, I have to get this guy, and they're going to give up too much. We see it every year in the draft. And I think this year is going to be no exception. Not every first-round pick works out. Less than 50% of all first-round quarterbacks even work out as well themselves. So, you know what? I think the Eagles, if they do trade up, they don't have to trade up too far. And listen, I think there's a possibility that Denver could trade up to 4 or 5 to get a player, like a quarterback. There's a possibility that a team like the Lions or the Panthers, if that does happen, would be willing to trade back with the Eagles because they realize that they can just let the draft come to them. If the Eagles feel comfortable at going up and getting a guy. And that comes to the text board message I got. 609-403-0973. Dan from EHT commented on the text board, says, come on, Eagles, wake up and draft Micah Parsons. Dan, I wish it was that simple. But there's 2 reasons why I don't think the Eagles are going to draft him in this draft. I think the number one reason has to do with the fact that the Eagles have a history of not drafting linebackers. And I think that in this draft, you can potentially get other linebackers. And I'll get you those prospects in just a minute. But the other issue is, I don't think we've talked enough about this. This is something that Jeff Mosher has brought up multiple times on Football at 4. There's off-the-field issues with Micah Parsons. And I think this is about time that we had this conversation for a hot minute. The reason why I think it's important to bring up is because, number one, NFL teams are always wary about people with off-the-field issues. Remember, guys like Rolando McClain and other guys who have had these, Randy Gregory's, Alden Smith apparently is wanting to be arrested for choking somebody in a coffee shop today. I mean, it's not good. It's not a good situation. And Micah Parsons, for those who don't know, he had to switch high schools because he was accused of inciting a riot at one of his high schools. All right. You have a situation where it's all right. So you have a guy who had to transfer schools because he had issues at one high school. He has been accused in getting in fights with his teammates. He supposedly tried to convince one of his teammates to not sue him by asking the head coach, James Franklin, to intervene in the situation. So there wouldn't be criminal charges brought up against Micah Parsons. He's had some issues off the field. He has issues getting along with people. And I just have to wonder, is that the kind of guy you want? Is what he does on the field good enough? And this was Sal Paolantonio. All right. Sal Paolantonio, Mike Gill asked him about Deshaun Watson. But what Sal Pal says here has weight with the Micah Parsons thing, too, about Jeffrey Lurie, the Eagles owner. Take a listen.
If you look at Jeffrey Lurie, he's a deeply liberal person concerned with the rights of women. His master's in psychology from Boston University, a PhD in social policy from Brandeis, and his PhD dissertation, Mike, was entitled The Depiction of Women in Hollywood Movies. He's always been concerned about women and the depiction of women in the media specifically. And that's an interesting reconciliation that he'll have to make. I realize they brought in Michael Vick, but this is different.
And this is different with Micah Parsons as well, because the Eagles don't have a history of bringing in trouble. That's the Cowboys arena. They are the ones who drafted Randy Gregory. They brought in Alden Smith. They brought in Greg Hardy. That's what they do. That's not what the Eagles do. The Eagles don't have a history of bringing in young men who have troubled pasts. So it's more than just Micah Parsons is talented and the Eagles don't have running backs. It's the fact that this young man has issues off the field. And I can't get around that. And Micah Parsons' explanation for it when he's asked about it, he goes, well, we all make mistakes when we're 17, 18 years old. That's not helping. Being dismissive and acting that way is not helping the situation, Micah Parsons, at all. So if he's got issues off the field, maybe he has character personality issues, I'm not going there with him as a linebacker, no matter how talented he is. I feel the Eagles are in a position where they need to avoid anyone who has issues. Okay? I think that I don't want injury issues like with Caleb Farley. I don't want any personality issues with Micah Parsons. He's not the only linebacker in this draft. And if he goes on and has a wonderful career, I hope the best for him. And I hope that his maturity and he gets with some good people to help him make better decisions in his life. But I don't want to see that the Eagles don't need to be a babysitting operation. They don't need to be a rehab project for every single guy who comes through just because they're talented. Now, when it comes to linebackers, there are some guys out there. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame is a freak. I love that kid, okay? I like the kid Nick Bolton from Missouri. I like Jabril Cox from LSU. Chaz Surratt from North Carolina, I like him too. All right? I like the kid Collins, Xavier Collins from Tulsa. I know people talk about Jamin Davis. I'm a little lukewarm on him personally. Pete Warner was a solid linebacker from Ohio State. And these are guys who are not going to go all in the first round. Collins is probably a late first round pick, honestly. But I think overall you can find players in this draft. And I think linebacker is a position with solid depth in this draft. It's not like cornerback to me. Cornerback seems to be a position where it's the first three guys, then the next three guys, and then there's this drop off. Linebacker seems to be Micah Parsons, Owusu-Koramoah are in one category. And then you have everyone after that is like in this huge glut of about 6, 7, 8 guys. Don't forget as well, Dylan Moses is out there. I know he's had some injury issues, so maybe you stay away from him. But if he's around like the third or fourth round, because of those injury issues, you can't pass him up because he's a leader, he's a physical freak, and his 2 injuries, honestly, were him making football players. Okay? He wasn't getting injured running around in practice like Sidney Jones was. Remember, Sidney Jones tore his Achilles because he was doing a pro day run. He hurt himself at his pro day, at a workout. So, listen, there's a huge difference between hurting yourself in football action and then off the field in practice. So that's why for me, I'm staying away from Collins. I think you can get linebacker somewhere else. Kyle Dubray comments over watching on the YouTube channel at 973 ESPN, where you can watch the show on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Says, we need Xavier Collins in the second round. He said Zach Collins, but I feel pretty comfortable saying that Kyle meant Xavier Collins. Listen, Xavier is a freak. To me, there's a handful of guys who are uniquely talented. What makes Collins unique is he's 6'5", 260. And he's not a bulky guy. He can cover at that size. He is basically a massive athlete. All right. He is built like a UFC fighter. One of those super freak athletes who fight in the UFC. He's built like one of those guys. All right. You know, when you watch Francis Ngannou, win the heavyweight championship a few weeks ago over Stipe Miocic, or back in the day when you saw guys like Cain Velasquez and those kind of guys, that's the kind of athlete we're talking about with Xavier Collins. He can run, he can tackle, he's special. So you want to go get the kid from Tulsa? I'm good with that. You're probably not going to be in range to get Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa because you got to be somewhere probably between like 18 and 29 is where he's going to go. But I love him as a talent. I think Nick Bolton is incredibly instinctive. I think he's a guy that if you watch any Missouri games this year, he pops off the tape. So you can get linebacker elsewhere in this draft. It doesn't have to be just Micah Parsons. By the way, Kyle Dubray followed up and said, "Yep, I meant Xavier Collins." But that's all good. I knew what you meant. That's all that matters. Kyle, I knew what you meant. Kyle followed up and said, Dylan Moses is D'Amico Ryans. I think Dylan Moses is faster than D'Amico. D'Amico was strictly a 3-4 defense middle linebacker. I think Dylan Moses is a little more than that. But I understand the comparison because of the structure of their bodies and the kind of defenses that came from in college. But I get what you're saying. I'm just saying my point overall is that there are linebackers to be found in this draft. Thanks to Dan from EHT. Thanks to Kyle over on YouTube for watching. We're going to get back to the Sixers coming up next. Kevin McCormick, our Sixers beat writer for 97.3 ESPN.com, joins us next as we are going to potentially see the debut of George Hill tonight. What is going on with Tobias Harris? And we are going to get the anticipated Steph versus Joel matchup. Kevin will talk all about that coming up next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Jab, step, dribble move, spins, hangs, puts it in the air. He can't be stopped right now. Tobias Harris, beautiful turnaround shot.
The Sixers host the Golden State Warriors. Tonight, coverage begins at 7:30. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
On some models, excludes Corvette with GM financing. Excludes prior sale. See dealer for details. It's Bennett Chevrolet's Spring into Savings Super Sale. This month, you'll get Bennett's famous GM supplier employee pricing on new Chevys, and you keep all the rebates up to a 25% discount on some models. There's no need to negotiate. Just get here and get your new Chevy at the GM supplier employee price, and you keep all the rebates up to a 25% discount. There's another way to save big with Bennett's available 0% financing. Plus, Bennett's paying a minimum $7,000 for any trade you can bring us, regardless of condition. That's a minimum $7,000 for any vehicle towards any pre-owned on our lot. Imagine how much more we'll pay for your good quality trade. And because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend, there's never any sales pressure and never any negotiating needed. No stress, no hassles, no haggles. Just your best car buying experience ever. Find new roads at Bennett Chevrolet, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Attention prop swappers. Home run heaven has begun as it's officially baseball season on PropSwap, where you can find the best odds in the world on the Fightin' Phils and all your favorite teams. Acquire future World Series champion tickets today while the odds are sky high, and you can even sell them on PropSwap next month for profit when the odds drop. You could turn $100 into $400 quick without ever even touching the ticket. So download the PropSwap app today and get started this baseball season. PropSwap, where America buys and sells sports bets.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Live here in the Matt Blatt Kia studios. Yes, Matt Blatt Kia, they want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt Kia on the Black Horse Bike in Hennig Township. Visit them online at mattblattkia.com. Sixers back in action tonight. Steph versus Joel. It is happening. That and more we got to get to coming up right now with our own Kevin McCormick from 97.3 ESPN.com. Joins us right now on the show. Kevin, how you doing today?
Josh, I'm doing good. I'm feeling good on a Monday. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. So, listen, I'm better now that I know Steph is going to play tonight. There was a whole conjecture circulating all day long, and Steve Kerr seemed to put it to bed pretty darn quickly early when we talked to the media. So just in terms of how do you feel about this matchup? I feel like I know they're not playing directly against each other, but it's the spectacle of you have two guys who have been absolutely in fuego in their last 7 games, both of them scoring over 30 points per game recently, both of them just highly efficient offensively, and they're arguably two of the most exciting players to watch right now in the league.
No doubt. It should be fun. Not to mention they're both represented by their shoe deals are both with Under Armour. So there's that nice little sneaker war in there as well between them two. But yeah, like you said, it should be fun. Joel's been on an incredible tear. Same could be said for Steph Curry. Not to mention, Curry's going to be out there giving it his all because Golden State's in that mix right now to where they're sitting in 9th in the West and they're just outside of the 8th seed. So they're a team that's still trying to figure out their playoff destiny while the Sixers are trying to help better cement theirs now that they've gained a little ground with Brooklyn losing to Miami. So it should be a fun matchup.
Yeah, just the full numbers here. In their last 7 games, Embiid is averaging 30.1 points per game, shooting 47.7% from the field, along with 1.7 blocks per game. Curry in the last 7 games averaging 40.9 points per game, shooting 57% from the field, along with 4.9 assists per game. So both these guys are having absolutely phenomenal years right now, at least in the last 7 games, but overall in the year as well. Steph's been great to have him back in the league. And you mentioned this is going to be a competitive game. And I think people are overlooking the fact that the Warriors are playing for something. So this is not going to be a game the Sixers can just kind of like coast through. I understand that it's going to be a different environment because, there's a national TV audience, 7:30, not the usual time, but you got to keep focused because you're still playing for something. The Sixers, you can't let the other team playing for what they're playing for get in the way of what you're playing for.
Absolutely. And we've seen earlier in the year, there's been some of those few games where the Sixers have had some mental lapses this season going against teams that should be a rather favorable matchup. Although, like you said, it should be competitive. This is a game the Sixers should still walk away with. And it's also not a matchup that they should overlook. Because like you said, Steph Curry has been just on an absolute tear this season. And if they think they can just walk in and roll over this Warriors team just because they're not the Warriors team that we've become accustomed to in recent seasons, they can catch you slipping. I mean, even when these teams met the first time, the Sixers broke out to a big lead and the Warriors bench essentially clawed them back into that game. And it was kind of back and forth down in those closing minutes. So although this is a matchup they should be able to take care of handily, it's also one that you can't just overlook.
Kevin McCormick joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Kevin MCC NBA for all your Sixers and NBA coverage. Kevin, when you look at also as well the game tonight, there's speculation about Seth Curry. It looks like he's going to play tonight. The bigger news is George Hill is expected to make his debut tonight. What are you looking for from Mr. George Hill?
Nothing in particular, mainly just seeing him out there. Obviously, he's not going to be this perfect puzzle piece night one. This is a guy that hasn't played in weeks. It's just going to be more getting his legs back under him, getting him acquainted in with this lineup. Would expect to see him run both with the second unit and with the starters, especially with Ben Simmons out tonight. So just seeing what he can bring, knock that rust off, hopefully be able to knock down a couple shots, mainly to see how he does initiating that offense for the second unit, because that is going to be arguably where he can be most valuable once he's fully integrated into the system.
I know there's talk that it looks like Tobias Harris is pretty much out tonight, is what Doc Rivers said. So what would you expect the lineup to be, considering who is available and who's not tonight?
If I had to guess right now, I'd probably say maybe we see a Tyrese Maxey start. I would have to say the Tobias Harris spot could either go to Furkan Korkmaz or Mike Scott, depending on how the rest of the lineup goes. So I think this is going to be kind of a wild card one, just because even with Ben Simmons still being questionable as well, there could be a lot of holes to fill, or maybe it might not be as easy. But if you have Ben Simmons, I would have to say probably Furkan Korkmaz gets the start. But I mean, who really knows?
I'm not enjoying this, but I am going to say I took a little bit of delight in the news yesterday when Kevin Durant went down, not because I want to see him go down, but because I feel like, I just need every reason to just check all the people who are obsessing over the Nets and put them back in their place. It's like these guys have played 8 games together. The Sixers are on the court right now, and Embiid's on the court right now, warming up for a game tonight. Meanwhile, KD has another nagging injury he has to deal with. And it's like people just only want to give the Sixers a chance because on their video game at home on NBA 2K, they're playing with the Nets, not with the Sixers.
It just shows that this Nets team isn't this Goliath that everyone's hyping them up to be, even though they've portrayed that as themselves, because they've just given off the vibe that they don't really care about this regular season, that they're just going to coast through. But when you're looking at these other teams in the East, you're looking at Milwaukee, you're looking at the Sixers, Boston. These are groups of guys who have been together, who have scars together. I think that's the main thing that gives the Sixers the edge over this Brooklyn team, is that they've had their heartbreak together. They've gone to war for multiple seasons. Yeah, you can tell me that Kyrie, KD, and James Harden are the best of friends, but I mean, I'll take the guys who have, just gone to work season after season together, who have built that chemistry, who have gone through the ups and downs together, because at the end of the day, that's the group that's going to fight harder, who understands everything that the group's been through, and they want to take themselves to the next level because they're sick of plateauing in that same area. So I agree. It just shows that the Nets team isn't this clear-cut favorite, despite everyone trying to make them it.
Kevin McCormick joining us here. Sixers back in action tonight, 7:30 at Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter to get all your Sixers NBA coverage. 7:30 tonight, Joel versus Steph here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Tom McGinnis on the call. Kevin, I wanted to also touch on you. Paul Hudrick mentioned this earlier on Inside the Sixers with Mike Gill. Also, you talked about this with Paul on the Coming In for a Landing podcast. It's kind of what I've been feeling, and it's not really anything that anyone is new to me hearing me say, but I feel a little vindicated. I'm not the only one saying this. I think I'm paraphrasing what you said a little bit, okay, and what Paul said. But I think there's a conspiracy against Embiid. I think that nobody wants to give this guy the MVP because of the fact that they want to find every excuse to not give it to him. And it goes back to the whole Rookie of the Year, when they didn't want to give it to him then. He's only played 30 games, and they want to find every reason now, even though, half the games he missed this year almost were because of COVID protocols and had nothing to do with injury. So in an regular season, we're judging somebody based on regular world rules, when in reality, Nikola Jokic is having an amazing year, but Embiid is having just as statistically a year. So to me, the fact that everyone's saying, oh, Jokic this, Jokic that, and they don't want to give Embiid credit, I think it's a complete farce.
There's a couple different layers to it. First off, before I even say it, no disrespect to Nikola Jokic. Obviously, he's had a phenomenal season for Denver. He's done wonderful things. He like Joel is in that, one of one category at the center position. And it's just great to see multiple big men in the mix for MVP after they've tried to create this narrative that the big man is gone. The big man is here and the big man has evolved. So it's great to see them both in the discussion. And like you said, with Embiid's missed games, they're not all due to injury. And I think part of why it's weighing him down now in the MVP debate is because of how long it lagged on in the beginning of his career, that the narrative and the book was written that he's just always going to be this injury-prone guy. So I think no matter what, it's always going to be something that's held against him. And I have no issue with missed games being held against Joel Embiid, but the only missed games that should be held against him are the ones where he sat due to injury. The ones that had to do with COVID protocol should not be on his record because that was something that's out of his control. Like you said, it's an regular season. So although I agree being on the floor does matter, you can't hold it against somebody when they were off the floor due to something that was out of their control. And Joel Embiid's been the most dominant player in the NBA. Obviously, I'm a little biased because it's someone I've watched night in and night out, but the numbers speak for themselves. The winning speaks for themselves. There's very few people who have been as dominant as Joel Embiid this season, maybe nobody. So I agree. I think he's still in that mix, and I still feel he has a very strong case to win the award.
I hope so, because I feel like a lot of times people, whether they want to admit it or not, they go into voting with agendas. And, listen, this is not politics. Okay? This is sports, for goodness sake. Let's stop being ridiculous and, holding grudges all the time for no good reason and just give the award. Listen, LeBron should have won the award last year, for example. Okay. Everyone want to tell me, well, the analytics say this now about Giannis, right? LeBron was the first guy who was not a point guard to have double-digit assists in 40 plus years. But give it to Giannis because you don't want to give it to LeBron. And I just feel like with these awards, listen, who is the most valuable player, not the most outstanding player? There's a V in that award for a reason, Kevin.
Not to mention, like you just said, that whole debate last year, a year later, when people look back on it, they understood they made the wrong choice. And I feel like we could be in the same situation again because it really feels like the media is just trying to hand Nikola Jokic the award as more of just like a survivor award because he never got hurt throughout the regular season. And no disrespect to that, but I think a year later, when we look back on it, this could be another one where they mess it up. And it would just be great for Joel Embiid just because of the whole story. Like I said earlier, missing those first 2 seasons due to injury and everyone trying to close the book on him on being Greg Oden 2.0. And, he was never going to see the court and the Sixers wasted this pick and the process was to nothing for him to have this meteoric rise to stardom and show that he is the generational talent that he was hyped up to be from the beginning. And not to mention it'd be 20 years to the dot from when AI hoisted the trophy. So obviously for Sixers fans too, it would be a nice gesture if it does go down.
And the worst part is when you said Survivor, the first thing I thought of is Nikola Jokic can win Survivor Series if he wanted to. And this is the NBA, not WWE. And the other thing was I rewatched the Infinity War this weekend when Thanos is a survivor. So if Nikola Jokic wants to hang out with WWE wrestlers and Thanos, he can, because that's the only way he's going to win the award. Kevin McCormick joins me here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, appreciate you jumping on. Enjoy the game tonight.
No problem, Josh. You have a good night.
And you hear the music. That means we're wrapping up the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Great stuff from Kevin McCormick as we get you ready for Sixers versus Warriors. 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks everybody who texted and messaged the show earlier to talk about the Eagles. Of course, we'll have more about that to talk about during the week here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig. I'll be back tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Don't forget, tomorrow, Mike Gill, the Sports Bash 206 on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you subscribe to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can watch the show as well as listening here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Have a great night.
It's your chance to win Sports Bash Cash up to $10,000. Enter the code words every day at 973ESPN.com or with the free mobile app. The more codes you enter, the more chances you have to win up to $10,000. Here's the Sports Bash Cash code word.
Stones. STONES. Stone. Enter it now on our website, 973ESPN.com, or use the free mobile app. Sports Bash Cash is brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union for all your lending needs. Get the next Sports Bash Cash code word tomorrow morning at 9:55.
It's Sports Bash Cash 10 times a day, every weekday at 55 after each hour from 9:55 a.m. to 6:55 p.m. Listen all day for your chance to win Sports Bash Cash up to $10,000.